share Wednesday night story time with you guys. And we are reading the next chapter in our book, Gumtree Gulley, that we have been going back through over the past few weeks. And if you have not watched last week's video yet, you can go back and do that before you watch this one. This one is chapter 5, and so last week we read chapter 4. So we're coming to the end of our story. We only have one more week after this one. And this week's story is called Out of the Ashes. So if you watched the video for the chapter before this one, you'll know that everything in Gumtree Gulley was burned, right? It was all burned up. And so now we're going to hear what happens to the animals next after that. A terrifying and devastating bushfire had raged through Gumtree Gulley. It had burned hotter than the heat of the sun, and it had roared like the sound of a mighty engine. But all the animals who lived in Gumtree Gulley had been saved. They had been rescued by the courage and wisdom of the ranger. Started by a lightning strike, the bushfire had blazed like a furnace from one end of Gumtree Gulley to the other. Every tree and every bush had been scorched, blackened, and burned by that fearsome fire. Not a blade of green grass was left. Everything was covered in a thick layer of sooty gray ash. Now the animals stood beside the creek, looking at the blackened and smoldering bushland around them, glad to be alive, but sad that their beautiful home had been destroyed. Rocky the Wallaby and Bluey the Possum went up to the ranger and quietly thanked him for rescuing them. "We would be dead if you hadn't come just when you did," said Rocky. "Yes," said Bluey with tears in his big round eyes. And then, because he couldn't think of anything else to say, he said, "Thank you, Ranger." The ranger leaned over and gently patted the possum on his furry head. But some of the other animals had already forgotten about their rescue and were staring at the burnt and blackened bush around them. "This is just a mess," sneered Sneaky the goanna. "Now we won't be able to live here. There's not a blade of grass left, not even a green leaf on a tree. There won't be any food left for Curly or Rocky. All the fruit has been burned up, so Bluey will starve. I'll bet all the insects have been fried to a crisp, too, so I'll have nothing to eat. Oh, what a mess. We're going to have to leave, all of us. We'll all have to find somewhere else to live." A look of alarm came over Curly the koala's face. "Without gum leaves, I shall most certainly starve," he muttered in a glum voice. "Look at my favorite blue gum. It's nothing but a skeleton now, a bare black skeleton. How can I sleep comfortably in that all day?" Jacko the kookaburra opened his beak and, to everyone's surprise, said, "This is no laughing matter. We have nowhere to live and nothing to eat. It's all right for me. As soon as my wing is better, I can fly away. But the rest of you are in trouble." Remember, Jacko lost some feathers by bumping his wing against a tree trunk when he tried to fly away through the thick smoke of the bushfire. Paddle the platypus said sadly, "Just look at my beautiful creek. It's covered in ash and filled with burnt and broken branches. It's as dead as a creek can be." "Stop being so glum, all of you," said the ranger. "The bushland will grow again. Everything that is black and burnt today will be bursting with greenery in just a few months. For many of these trees and plants, the ash from the fire provides fuel to grow. Just wait and see. New life shall grow out of these ashes." Jacko threw back his kookaburra head, opened his beak wide, and began to laugh very loudly. "Ha ha! Now that's funny," he squawked. "That's very funny indeed. The idea that new life can grow out of such dead wood is just a hoot. Ha!" And he laughed some more. Sneaky the goanna joined in with a sneer, saying, "What's burnt stays burnt. Everyone knows that. My great-uncle Slither was once caught in a bushfire. He was burnt to a crisp, and that's the way he stayed. Well, these trees and bushes are just as burnt as great-uncle Slither was, and I tell you they'll stay burnt. Gumtree Gully will never be green again. Nothing can grow here now. The ranger said quietly and seriously, Sneaky, you are wrong. Within a few weeks, there will be green shoots and tiny leaf buds, and within a few months, you won't recognize the place. There will be new life bursting out everywhere. But what if you're wrong? Complained Curly. We won't be able to stay here then. We'll have to move on and find somewhere else to live. But I don't want to live anywhere else, moaned Bluey. We like it here, added Rocky. This is our home, mumbled Bluey, a small tear trickling down his cheek. I don't think I could waddle very far, Wombat said. Not at my age. You won't have to move out of Gumtree Gully, I promise you, said the ranger. Wise old Wombat scratched his hairy nose. Well, I, for one, believe what Ranger says, he said. If he says new life will grow out of the burnt and blackened bush, I believe him. So we don't have to leave? Whimpered Bluey. Can we really stay here? You won't have to leave, said the ranger. You can stay here in Gumtree Gully. Jacko laughed and said, Ha! That's all very well, but what about now? Even if these new green shoots and buds of yours do grow, it won't be for some time. What should we eat today and tomorrow? I shall bring you food, said the ranger, until the bushland grows back and new life appears. Until then, I shall bring in bales of hay and grasses, piles of leaves, and food for all of you, even meat for you, Jacko. What about my creek? Asked Paddle. I'll pull out the biggest of the burnt branches and tree trunks, and the water will wash away the rest. The ranger reassured him, and I will see to it that all of you are fed until new life and new growth springs out of all the blackness and deadness around you. You have no need to fear. Oh, I almost forgot to show you the picture on that page. Here he is talking to the animals. Sneaky sneered. Curly looked doubtful, and Jacko laughed out loud. Ha ha! How could new life come out of a place so damaged and dead? They all wondered. But it turned out to be just as the ranger had said. He brought in supplies of food for all the animals. Within a few days, rain came and washed away the worst of the ash and dust and fed the plants and bushes with the water they needed. Within a few weeks, tiny green buds started to appear on trees and bushes. Within a few months, there was fresh new green growth everywhere. Even the colorful wildflowers reappeared. Within 6 months, it was just as lush and green as it had ever been. Gumtree Gully was a living bushland once again, just as it had been before the fire. One day, Rocky and Bluey were racing each other down the bank of the creek when Rocky suddenly stopped. "What's the holdup, Bigfoot?" asked Bluey. "Have you tripped over your own toes?" "No, of course not," Rocky replied. "I'm very sure-footed. It's just that I suddenly remembered, that's all." "Remembered what?" asked his possum friend. "Remembered what this place was like just after the big bushfire. Now it's all grown back, just as the ranger said it would." Bluey looked all around and said, "It's amazing stuff, all right. New life out of the ashes." So that's the end of that chapter. We just have one chapter left next week. So let's talk about this chapter a little bit. So remember, we've been talking about how this story, even though it's with animals and a forest and a ranger, we can think about how it kind of relates to us and represents us in our lives with God and with Jesus. So this last chapter, the one before was about the animals getting rescued. Now, what do you think this one is showing us about? It's showing us how all those things that were burned and black and dead can come back again. They can come back to life and be new again and be alive again, even after the animals thought they were gone forever. So, what could that remind us of? Did the ranger bring all those things back to life, you think? Did he make the plants grow and make the trees have new leaves on them? No, he didn't do that. He did bring the animals food, though. We said that the ranger was kind of like God in this story, but who made the plants grow? Who made everything come back to life? That was God, right? So this chapter really is telling us really all about God's power, what God can do, even when we think that things are gone and dead and will never be new again. God can make them new. So the fresh new life that grew out of the ashes in this story is a picture of what God has done with Jesus. After Jesus was killed on a cross, God brought him back to life again. God can make new green shoots grow out of ashes, and he also brought Jesus back to life from death. So even though Jesus had really died, God brought him back to life again. Lots of people saw him and even touched him. So God is the source of all life, and he brought Jesus back to life so that Jesus could be the bringer of new life for us. Jesus left our world and went back to be with God, his Father, and there God made Jesus the King of the whole world. So one day King Jesus will come back to our world. He will punish those who are saying no to God, but at the same time, he'll welcome his forgiven friends into his kingdom forever. So Acts chapter 2, verse 32 says, God has raised Jesus to life and taken him up to the place of honor at God's right hand. And Acts 1:11 says, this Jesus who was taken up into heaven will come again in the same way as you saw him go. Okay, so we have one more chapter left. You guys think about what that chapter might be about, how we might finish off this story. I hope that you guys have been enjoying this story. It's a fun one. I like it. I hope you guys are enjoying it. So next week at church is going to be the first Sunday in February, and we are going to have our outdoor service. So everyone is welcome to come to the outdoor service. It might be cold, so we might be in our cars, but I hope you'll wave out the window, or maybe you'll wear your big warm coat and hop out and say hi for a little while, even if it's cold out. And I am so excited to see you guys then. I miss you guys, and I'm praying for you, and I'll talk to you later, okay?
Did you know that he's the one